Chapter 9, A Parting of the Ways. When Dr. Elliott stopped in alone on his late evening rounds, he found Ken cheerful in spite of the new concerns that were weighing heavily upon him. Leighton had come by earlier with his lawyer and a notary public as witnesses to certify Ken's shaky signature on the 2 copies of the contract. Ken was surprised that he now felt a great sense of relief. For Leighton, however, he felt an oppressive heaviness and concern. As for Carla, he knew her well enough to realize that there was little hope to salvage their relationship unless he renounced his newfound faith in Christ. That realization was almost more than Ken could bear. At the same time, however, he had a new joy that seemed to be independent of circumstances. "I didn't have the strength to fight Frank and the CIA," Ken told Hal. "It wouldn't have done any good anyway. While I'm laid up in here, they could copy everything I've done and build their own model. There's no way I could stop them. At least I got some cash out of the deal." "I don't see what else you could have done," said Hal sympathetically. "Now put that behind you and leave the results in God's hands." "That's not so easy when I feel responsible. If my invention is the means of bringing Frank and who knows how many others under demonic control, how can I feel good about that?" "That device won't do it, Ken. Whatever you've invented, it's not what you and Leighton think. It's not the ingenious electronics that make the connection with the 9. "How can you say that?" asked Ken. "Witch doctors have been in touch with spirit guides, which is basically the same idea for thousands of years," said Elliott dryly. "Demons have a variety of disguises designed to appeal to everyone. The extraterrestrial intelligence mask is for science fiction buffs and scientists who imagine that time plus chance could produce godlike beings out there on some planet light years away." Elliott shook his head in dismay. Ken paused to think it through. "When you said something like that the other day, I didn't like it. But now it makes a lot of sense that today's parapsychologists are just civilized witch doctors. I think you're right. It's the same thing under another label." "Exactly," said Hal. "Whether they call themselves the 9 or Ascended Masters or whatever, demons have perpetually been in contact with mankind through assorted yogis, witch doctors, mediums, and other shamans. So don't be racked by guilt. The device Leighton foolishly paid $1.3 million for is no better than a Ouija board or a crystal ball." Ken looked at Hal and laughed. "You mean all of my super sophisticated electronics was just window dressing, and I didn't know it?" "Right. There are dozens of divination devices. That's all you've designed. Just one more. On the other hand, the 9 may have special plans for your version because it seems so scientific and sophisticated. That could be the ideal catalyst to set in motion a fulfillment of the prophecies concerning the entire world becoming deceived enough to hail the Antichrist as its savior." Ken turned his head and stared out the window in silence. At last he looked at Hal and said, "It sounds like a science fiction plot, but it also makes a lot of sense. I think I'm beginning to understand. It's not that the deception itself is so convincing, but that human pride is so blind. I can see why it appealed to me." Then he added somberly, "The thing that's troubling me most of all, well, you know what it is." "I understand," said Elliott sadly. "Carla cornered me in my office this afternoon. She was livid, claimed that I'd brainwashed you, vowed to report me to the hospital administration for practicing clergery instead of surgery." "She'll do it. That's Carla. You can count on it. When she decides on something, there's no turning back. I hope it doesn't affect your position here." Dr. Elliott smiled. "She can complain all she wants. It won't matter. I haven't done anything unethical or that I wouldn't do again, so don't worry about it." He reached out and put his hand on Ken's shoulder. "She didn't spell it out, but I got the impression she's breaking the engagement. And I feel at least partly responsible. I can't believe that I let a video get out of this hospital, especially one that important, without having a copy made. We've been over that. She says it wouldn't have convinced her, and I'm sure that's true. You have to understand where she's coming from. She mockingly refers to herself as a PK. You know, a preacher's kid. Her father is still a pastor of a huge church, but from what she says, he must be the ultimate hypocrite. She's bitter about it. When she met me, well, I was an atheist and had all the intellectual and supposedly scientific arguments to support her rejection of everything she'd been taught as a child. And now you've pulled the prop out from under her. She never needed any propping up. She's a very strong person. Carla won't compromise, and she knows I won't. A lot of people are praying for both of you, said Hal. Don't put any limits on what God can do. I'm trying to learn. Karen came in this afternoon and read to me from the Bible. I really appreciated that. There's so much to take in, and it's suddenly like I can't get enough. She was reading from, I think it was Peter, something about faith being tested. I hope I can stand the test. None of us can on our own without him, Dr. Elliott assured him. Faith isn't some power we wield to slay spiritual dragons or aim at God to manipulate him into answering our prayers. Faith is trust in God in submission to his will. That means letting him do things his way. I've been seeing that, but it helps when you explain it. There's something exciting about it. Well, this whole thing of faith that I used to think was only for uneducated people who couldn't think for themselves. Ken ran out of words, but his eyes had a new light that spoke volumes. Hey, you've come a long way since I saw you last, exclaimed Hal. It's always exciting to see someone born again and starting to grow. He could only squeeze Ken's arm as they looked into each other's eyes with a new sense of brotherhood. I'm grateful to you and Karen for not giving up on me. God didn't give up on us, responded Hal when he recovered his voice. That's what's so fantastic, to know that the creator of the universe loves each of us personally. I can never get over the wonder of it. So it makes sense to surrender ourselves into his hands because he happens to be quite a bit smarter than we are, and he really does love us. So his way is always best. Once you're thoroughly convinced of that, everything else takes care of itself. Ken nodded. I'm convinced. It's the only thing I've ever found that really makes sense. And I used to think that faith was some kind of irrational leap in the dark. Even as he spoke, there was an inner joy that transcended the sense of impending loss that he now felt so strongly. Carla came in late the next morning to say goodbye. Her eyes were red-rimmed and swollen in spite of the heavier-than-usual makeup. She was strong, but her love for Ken was strong as well. He'd been dreading this moment, and it had driven him to try his hand at prayer. It had been a rather clumsy attempt, but already he'd experienced a lightening of the burden and a strengthening for the battles ahead. Ken, I don't want this to deteriorate into an emotional catharsis, Carla began. We both know that a barrier has come between us. She had to turn away to hide the tears. Carla, I love you so much. I'd do anything that I honestly could. Except renounce your new beliefs, and I wouldn't ask you to do that. I hope you can respect my beliefs. I respect you and your right to believe whatever you wish, but I can't respect what you now believe. I once believed it myself, and I know it isn't true. But I don't think that would help either of us right now. I love you, Ken, as much as ever. I want you to know that. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment they shared their anguish together. And I love you, Carla, even more than I ever have before. That's why this hurts so much. Our love for each other, we can't let that be destroyed. Their eyes met again briefly, in wordless empathy for each other's pain. Carla was the first to break the silence. Love has to have help, Ken. You know that. Even the closest relationships have their times of strain. It wouldn't work to start out this far apart in something that's so important to both of us. She lost her voice and there was another long silence before she was able to continue. "It just wouldn't work," she repeated. "It just wouldn't. I wish you'd give us some time." Ken's eyes were pleading with her, but she couldn't meet his gaze. "There'll be plenty of time," she said in a faraway voice, "whatever good that will do. It would be agony for us to be near each other. I've already made up my mind. I'm moving back to D.C. I've got lots of connections there." Now Ken had lost his voice. There was another long, traumatic silence. "I just can't believe it," Carla added at last. "You were the ultimate atheist. What happened to all those arguments?" He took a deep breath. "God help me," he thought to himself. "Carla, I don't think there is such a thing as a convinced atheist. I always knew that God existed. You can't honestly pretend the universe just happened by chance. I just didn't want to face the consequences, that I was morally accountable to my Creator." Carla cut him off. "Ken, I didn't come here to have you preach at me. I've heard plenty of that most of my life. You asked me a question. Please listen to me. There's not a doctor or nurse in this hospital that can deny that I'm a living miracle. You can't deny it." "Oh, can I? My father preached miracles. Oh, and how he preached against sin." Derisively, she spat out those two contemptible words. "And you know what he did? He committed adultery, not just with one woman, but with who knows how many. He eventually ran off with his secretary and divorced my mother. When she finally faced the horrible truth, it killed her. She died of a broken heart." "I'm sorry," said Ken, "but that doesn't prove—" Carla cut him off again. "Prove? I'm giving you the facts. My father has a huge church today. His lifestyle doesn't seem to keep him from success in the self-righteous Christian world." "But Carla, there are plenty of Christians who are just as nauseated by your father's hypocrisy as you are. And your mother, you told me what a saint she was. She was a Christian. So how can you condemn Christ because of your father?" He fell silent. What else was there to say? She had turned away, unable any longer to bear the pain of looking into his eyes. She pulled the strap of her purse over her shoulder and prepared to leave. "I wish this hadn't happened this way," she said. "I didn't come here for a discussion or argument, just to make a simple statement and say goodbye." "We love each other," Ken pleaded. "We can work our way through this." Then he remembered the audio cassette she brought in and tried to get it from the bedside table, but it was just beyond his grasp. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw what he was reaching for, but made no move to help him. "Fire and Rain, James Taylor. You brought it back from the wreck," he reminded her. "More than sentiment, you told me. It was a hope you held on to. Do you remember the words?" She nodded almost imperceptibly. "I was humming it this morning," he continued eagerly, "and thinking it had to be more than coincidence that the stereo was playing that song when I went over the cliff." He began to sing it softly. "Look down upon me, Jesus. You've got to help me make a stand. You've just got to see me through another day. My body's aching and my time is at hand. I won't make it any other way." He reached out to touch her, but she pulled her hand away. "Please, Carla, I played that dozens of times when I claimed to be an atheist and never thought of what the words meant. We've listened to it together. You never told me you found the words offensive. I've only believed in Jesus, like that song suggests. Why has that brought a wall between us?" "Stop it, Ken. There's no point in prolonging the agony we both feel. You know that neither of us is going to compromise what we believe so deeply, so let's get this behind us." Abruptly, she stood up and walked resolutely toward the door. "I love you, Carla," he called after her. "I love you." For a moment, Carla's face broke as she paused and half turned. "If you love me, then do me one favor. Don't ever waste your time praying for me." Through a blur of tears, he watched helplessly as she walked from the room and out of his life.